sales. And I guess the real question many might have is what gives me, um, the privilege or the right to talk about sales. And I'll just share with you a little bit about my experience. In 1994, and I think that I told somebody that before, and they kind of fell to the floor. It was a youngin, of course. But in 1994, I was approached by a gentleman in the Washington metropolitan area about joining a program for insurance sales. And they had a program for teachers, and we would come in, and because simply they thought that teachers made the best salespersons because they are quote unquote coachable. And quite frankly, I didn't want to sell insurance, but it seemed to be a nice part-time income for me. And the company that I joined had a tremendous program in sales training, and it took us through the whole cycle of prospecting, going through and setting the appointment for the person, going in and doing the warm up. And I mean, the sales cycle was tremendous. I know that there were at least 9 phases of it, and we had a lot of memorization. So I do know a little bit about sales, and I would say quite a lot about sales. The one thing that I would tell anybody is when you're in sales, you need to make sure you're selling a product or providing a service for people whom you really have faith, and I guess you really need to like your product. You need to want to share it. And the real challenge that I had was being in a family who did not take too much stock in insurance. And it goes back to the old situation among African Americans, where rather than to be sold that quote unquote good insurance, or my grandmother and my grandparents were sold what was called these burial types of insurance, and they weren't really the best kind of insurance. So for the most part, my family had bad taste in their mouth, because when the insurance policy was actually, I guess, when we really needed the money for the funerals, we found out that it may have been worth $300, $400. It wasn't that kind of insurance that white America, and I use that term loosely, was privy to. So I had to fight my family on this notion of being an insurance agent. So that was one part of it. The most important thing that I learned about insurance was that you could have money accumulation in a plan. And I became very excited about insurance when I learned about mutual funds, and also the 403B plans for 403B plans for teachers. So I learned a lot there as well. But sales training is essential. And even though we might be internet network marketers, we do need to know about sales. So I concur with San on that. Also, I had the opportunity to sell, I think you all know, subterranean property, real estate. I worked at one of the local cemeteries. Again, we had copious meetings. We had meetings. We had manuals on how to sell burial plots, how to sell mausoleums, how to deal with customers, how to deal with objections. And so I have had lots of training with sales. So I'm really excited about talking about some aspects of it. And tonight what I really wanted to do was to kind of piggyback on what San had this morning. And I wanted to talk about sales and sales training. Last week, I made mention of the fact that there are steps, 8 steps involved in the sales process. And the very first thing we had to do was have leads. I'm not going to go through these 8 steps today, some of which you're going to see as I'm talking will be collapsed as I discuss it, but prospecting is the most important part of that sales funnel. We've got to have people coming into the funnel before we can even do a presentation, before we can do a needs assessment. And that's one of the things that Sam talked about this morning, and the gentleman on the recording talked about finding the need and filling it for the prospect. So sales training is a very broad category. It includes everything in the sales process, product knowledge, and I think a lot of times what people, when they talk about not wanting to talk to prospects, it has to do with a lack of knowledge about the product that they have. So my suggestion to us is to get down to the nuts and bolts of what we have to offer with PDL, what we have to offer in our MLM, every one of the products, we need to know it like the back of our hands, so that if a prospect does ask you about it, you'd be able to give them knowledge, and you're not hesitant and not fearful of being able to respond. So you do have to have product knowledge. Also, getting leads, prospecting. Last week, I think I talked about finding people online and offline, and Stan made mention of that this morning as well, that we need to go outside of our online activities, the Facebook, the Twitter, and find people who are walking and talking, going belly to belly is what they call it in the sales world. I think Chuck made mention today that he had gone to one of the meetups, and it was there that he gleaned some information of great importance about Facebook. But not only that, you get a chance to network with other people who are business-minded, like-minded individuals, and make connections. You also have your needs assessment. This is what the gentleman talked about this morning. You don't want to sell a prospect what you want to sell him or her. You want to sell what he or she needs. They may not have a need for, a 3 product. We have kits in our company. They may not need that entire kit. They may only want one of them. Here you are thinking about the $100 that you may be able to get in commission, but that person only wants something that's worth $25, $30 in commission. So you want to address the needs of your prospect. The sales cycle also requires that you deal with objections, and this is another fear that many network marketers have, salespersons have, dealing with those objections. What if they tell me no? There are plenty of ways in which you can deal with the objections that folk will give you simply by learning some of the key ways of handling objections. And again, oftentimes it comes down to product knowledge as well as taking great notes during your sales cycle. And I'll talk about that in a minute or two. The sales process, you have to know about opening and closing, how to open your meeting or your appointment, and how to close the deal. Presentation skills, and that is actually, a lot of times we have what are called canned presentations where you have to memorize it and go point by point by point. You have flip charts and the like, but you do have to have great presentation skills. When you're before your audience at a meeting, there's certain stances that you have to take. Body language comes into play, and all of that becomes important as you present yourself as an expert in your field. And lastly, we need to know that there's much, much more. The list is copious. First and foremost, you want to know your target market. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I do believe this is going to be one of the points that Sam will address next Tuesday, but you need to know your target market. What does that mean? You will build a better, stronger business simply by identifying and serving a specific customer group. In other words, your target market. So among the first things that you have to do is to refine your product or service so that you're not attempting to be all things to all individuals. You want to become a specialist, and you want to make sure that the people whom you are targeting and who are marketing your product with are those people who fit into that niche or that category. Otherwise, you're going to come away with a lot of no's, and more no's. So you need to target your market. So tonight, I want to really focus on talking to a prospect. Building rapport by asking great questions is the secret to success in selling. You've got to be a people person. You have to be able to connect with people. You have to be able to read them. And when I say read them, the posture, the intonation of the voice, all of that is a part of learning your people skills. You also have to be able to ask great questions. So finding out about people is the first most important step in selling yourself, in selling your product, and selling your ideas. You want to keep this always in mind that people won't care one iota about you until you show them that you really, really care about them. So the question becomes, so how can we as salespersons accomplish this? Number one, you want to listen and then listen some more. I think the expression goes, you've got two ears and one mouth. And that should be a clear indication. You want to use your ears twice as much as you use your flapper. So one of the biggest mistakes that we find even among veteran salespersons is that they they jump in as soon as possible whenever they hear that maybe they suspect that there's a sale to be made, a door of opportunity open, they jump in. But what happens is they miss the critical information. You don't want to take over the conversation as soon as you get a signal of a sale. The prospect may be wanting to, give you a signal that he or she is ready to buy. You want to take some time to ask another question and find out more. So you're always closing, but you want to make sure that it is a sale, if you will. Number two, you never want to assume, and this is what I was suggesting before, never assume. Whether you're new at sales or whether you're a veteran, you don't have all the answers. Every customer, every client situation is a little different. Even if it sounds like something that you've heard before, you need to keep in mind that if you don't listen to people, hear them out, you will probably alienate people. Now, as a sidebar, I'll say this. Even when we have our webinars, what is critically important is that we take the time to listen to what people have to say. You never want to assume that he or she means this or means that. You listen and take notes, if you will, but hear the person out so that the question can be heard and that you can address that question even for your prospect. Next, as the conversation progresses, you want to allow people to complete their thoughts. That kind of piggybacks on what I just said. You want to let the conversation breathe. You want to wait a beat, if you will, wait for a minute or two before you interject a comment. You never appear to be in too much of a hurry not to listen. And this is what is important. You never, ever want to interrupt. It is rude. Number four, you want to watch how salespersons you admire conduct themselves in a meeting. I know my manager, oh my goodness, he could close. He said you hear the expression all the time. Some people can sell ice to an Eskimo. He was like that. He could close a sale because he had experience. He gave me a book, gave me a manual on how to close a sale, how to, so many stories to be told on how to get somebody to sign the signature on, on a contract. But what you want to do is to take cues, if you will, from salespeople that you consider to be among the great. And you even might want to ask them to give you some pointers. I know this morning, San made the comment, if you don't know how to deal with the prospects in your back office, if you don't know how to get leads, ask and we will help you. He said that he and Ramon both had any number of prospects. If you don't know what you're doing, you need to go to the professional and seek help. Now, for us as salespeople, there are some books. Tom Hopkins is a great person who speaks to sales. He is a great closer. He has many, many books on sales and how to approach the sale, if you will. Zig Ziglar, another one good for doing that. Eric Worre, I don't know too much about him, but I want you to know that online you can go and get a document of his that deals with how to, maneuver in the sale. Scripts, if you will, on how to close the sale. But there are many, many people out there who are professionals whom you can go to study, look at them on the videos, on YouTube, and the like. But find folk that you admire and make them your mentors, if you will, or your, you want to mimic them, if you will. So today when I was doing my research, I ran across something that was new to me. It's a term called warm calling. Now, in our sales cycle when I was in insurance, they had what was called the warm-up. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. But warm calling was a term that I had not seen. And many of you may have already seen it, but it was something new to me. I didn't know that they had put an actual title to it. I knew about cold calling, but warm calling, I don't think they ever named it for me as such. But at any rate, warm calling is considered better than cold calling. The client has already expressed interest in your product, so there are more chances that he will listen to you. And moreover, your call will be considered as a follow-up call, providing information and important information instead of just being considered as a, unsolicited nuisance. Now, we've got this new system, PDL Pro, which is already putting us in a prime position, or in the old, in literature they call it the catbird seat. But it's putting you in a great position because you're putting out capture pages, you're putting out information on social platforms, social media platforms, where you're getting prospects whom you can consider people who you'll be warm calling. So you have already put out your lead magnet, if you will, and all you have to do is the follow-up. Cold calling is very difficult. As an insurance agent, working at the cemetery, working in insurance, and any sales position, you have to do what's called cold calling, and it is a difficult task, especially if you're not used to accepting no's. We had to learn one thing of great importance. Every no brings you closer to a yes. Be happy for the no's because you're coming closer to a yes. But cold calling is not for everybody. It's when a salesperson calls up a complete stranger to check whether they might be interested in buying his products or services. This is why we're suggesting to you all that, yeah, it's okay to use those leads that you purchase online, offline, and put them in your contact manager, but you've got to be careful with them. It's okay to do the scraping and put those in your contact manager, but you've got to be careful with them because you're cold calling. On the other hand, when you're warm calling, This term is used for situations when a call is made to a prospect after sending him or her some kind of a direct marketing piece, or to someone who has expressed an interest in the products or the services. Usually it's a better sale, a better conversation. Investopedia defines warm calling as follows. It's the solicitation of a potential customer with whom a sales representative or business has had prior contact. Warm calling refers to a sales call, a visit, or an email that is preceded by some sort of contact with the potential customer of prospect, such as a direct mail campaign, an introduction at a business event, or a referral. It's the opposite of cold calling in that the solicitation of prospects who were not anticipating such an interaction with whom the sales representative or business has not had prior contact. You have to be careful with cold calling. There are laws out there when it comes to email that you may not be able to solicit them unless they have been able to opt in or opt out of your email solicitation, if you will. Warm calling tends to be more personalized since the prior contact can be referenced or mentioned. So when you pick up your phone, you can easily say, "Hi, Ms. Jones, I saw you followed our company on Twitter," for example, or "Hello, Ms. Moses. I see that you opted into my capture page for opportunity launch." Or, "Hi, Mr. Jones, we met last week at the ABC conference." Warm calling, more personalized, and it allows you to use an icebreaker for the follow-up. Warm calling and the use of more effective sales channels such as an email, text message marketing, social media portals are considered to be the most efficient and effective way of generating new leads. And what I liked about what Investopedia said, the beauty of having warm calling, you have your social media portals like LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, all very important opportunities for you to reach out to people about your business. Also, people will leave a comment where? On your blog, where you've shared an article with a peer or you've tweeted something of interest. I'm going to come back and say over and over again, those blogs are another way of getting your business before the masses, if you will. So let's talk about the warm-up. I'm going to give you 3 warm-up suggestions for the first meeting. Now, this can be, usually when we think of the warm-up, it's done in the comfort of somebody's home or you bring them to your office setting. So we got to tweak this a little bit. You need to know, though, some of the suggestions that are given here for the first meeting are still applicable to the calls that you're going to make for your contact manager. The first thing you want to do is ease into the conversation with warm-up questions. Asking about problems right off the bat is very risky unless you already know what your prospect has as an issue or as a challenge. The best warm-up questions are open-ended ones. I think Sam spoke about that this morning, the difference between open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. You want to ask questions that are broad in scope, that focus on getting your prospect to talk about herself or himself. You want to learn more about your prospect in that conversation. You want to ask questions like, how long have you been with XYZ company? How has your job evolved, or how have you improved since you've been a part of the company? Do you have any challenges? What's the most difficult part of being in this particular MLM company? What would you say you like most about being a member of PDL? I mean, you want to get information from them, get them to talk. Now, I like this one because, I mean, even if you're not a people person, you can do this. You want to base your, well, let me just do it this way. Based on your prospects' responses to warm-up questions, you'll quickly discover plenty about their interests, their personality, their beliefs, how they feel about where they work, about the company, etc., etc. So there's more beneath the surface of your customers than just the business that they do with you. People love to talk about themselves. They want to talk about their family. They like talking about their jobs, about their pets, about their hobbies. So you want to ask your customers about their families, about their jobs, about their pets. Even if you're standing in the line at the Safeway or at the Giant, it's an easy way to strike up a conversation with someone to talk about, oh, I see you got so-and-so and so-and-so. I like that. I enjoy that. I mean, when I'm in the Safeway, when I'm in the store, it is very easy for me to talk to people. And simply because of the training that I've had in sales, but also because I think I'm a real people person. I don't mind talking to people. I don't mind stepping out of my comfort zone. And I'm not selling, I'm just being friendly. So you can find something cute about what somebody has on. It might be a hat, it might be a hairstyle, it may be a fragrance. And I mean, but men, you know, you have to keep it within reason as you were talking about a woman's fragrance. You have to be modest in what you're asking and the comments that you do in fact make to the opposite sex. And that goes for women as well. But it's a great way to learn about your customer, a great way to build a strong relationship with them. And it's not being nosy, it's just being friendly. And it's being, what do they call, uncovering information, if you will, as you go along. Two, and this one is important, you all, you want to write down the information your prospective client gives you. Capture any and all critical information before it evaporates from your brain. For example, you want to listen to any keywords and emotions that are behind them. If they're having difficulty with something, they told you about it, write it down. Now, why does this become important? Those notes should be kept, and for later in the meeting or for a later time when you are, talking to your prospect, those notes can be used for the close, because you can go back to those notes and you can say during the close, well, Susan, I remember you're saying that you were having difficulty with getting leads for your network marketing company. And we have XYZ system that makes it easier for you to do this. Bam, you've gone back. You want to also use those notes for what we call in the industry, they become hot buttons. Okay? You know what they like. You know how to, and I think Sam mentioned it, instead of, yanking your prospect, you're actually able to pull gently, tug them towards the end, and that is the signature on on the contract, if you will. But for goodness sake, take notes while you are at that meeting. And if they ever, if it's a question where you're one-on-one with them, you can easily say, well, my supervisor or my upline is making me take down notes so that I can give an account of what took place during this, during this session. There's always a way that you can justify why you're actually taking those notes. But over the telephone, you need to be taking notes constantly so that you can be aware. And if you're going to be talking to hundreds of people, after a while that will happen. You want to be able to know who said what and what information goes with what particular prospect. Successful salespersons always take notes. They listen attentively. I shouldn't say always. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use that word. But successful salespersons take notes. They listen attentively. They avoid the temptation to interrupt, criticize, or argue with their prospects. The worst thing you can do is to get in a heated argument with your prospects. That is why you never talk about religion. I don't care when you're at the table. Do not talk about religion. Do not talk about politics. They will all oftentimes incite what you call volatile, sometimes conversations. And people can be, um, I don't want to use the word antipathy, but dislike because of your political or your religious bent. And the other thing I want to tell you is when I used to go on sales, the one thing we do is look around the room to see what some of the interest of our prospect is. And I know that I made a grave error when I went on an appointment, just to share with you something. There was a couple there, and the man looked very, very much older than the woman. And I called him her father. So the problem here is you always need to get the facts before you misspeak. You always want to pay attention. You want to listen carefully. You want to make sure that you don't make these kinds of grave errors. But at any rate, that was a sidebar. That's why I use these notes. It's a good idea to occasionally repeat what your prospect's words are verbatim. So a lot of times when people are talking, they'll say, as they're, or one of the ways to get rid of those words or is to go back and say, well, Mr. Smith, let me see. I think what you're saying is, and you give the prospect his information back almost verbatim. And it also gives him or her an opportunity to say, no, I really didn't mean that. Let me clarify what I meant. All of this helps you to further identify the needs of your prospect so that you can provide an adequate solution to it. And it also helps to build rapport. You also want to look for a common ground. I didn't want to put this one here, but it's important that you find a way to put yourself on the same level as your prospect. It could be sharing of the weather conditions, your sports team, a local news story. But you want to meet your prospect on his or her level. Salespersons who fail to put an emphasis on developing trust and rapport actually do a disservice to their customers, and in effect, they leave the back door open to their competition. Critically important. You want your customer, your prospect to say, I've got a salesperson who is the greatest salesperson in the world. He listens to every word I say. She listens to the challenges that I have, and she offers me a solution to my challenges. And I'm going to tell you, before that person signs with another salesperson, especially in another field, they will call you. They will say, I'm really thinking about moving my monies over to XYZ company. What do you think about that? Or, Patricia, I was thinking about joining XYZ company because the products are so and so and so. You really do provide for, you've got that trust, you've got that rapport established when you become the best salesperson that you can. So developing strong relationships will keep out the competition, they'll keep them at arm's length, and your business will stay on the books. The third thing I want to say is you want to remove any assumptions that you have about your prospect. Now, there's an example that's given here about a representative who closed a sale. It was one of the biggest sales in the company's history. And this young man knew absolutely nothing about his prospect. He didn't know who she was. The thing that got him over is that he asked a lot of questions. He asked questions, and thereby he was able to come up with a solution to her problem. So once you finish your soundbite, it's imperative not to give into your urge to sell. Ironically, if you seem anxious to sell, your prospect will pick up on it and get defensive. And I need to tell you one thing. People can identify a salesperson who is desperate. Desperation is unattractive in business, and it's unattractive in life as well. So you don't want to sound like every other salesman trying to shove a solution down your customer's throat. You'll be more successful if you establish a relationship with your customer, with your prospect, and shift the focus onto the customer and not on yourself, not on the sale. Okay, and this one simply says that salespeople have strong egos, and so do customers. You want to keep that in mind. So you want to use well-chosen warm-up questions to get your customers talking, and you'll learn the best way to meet their needs. That way, it'll be the first of many meetings that you'll have and the start of a great business partnership. So I hope I'm not boring you to tears, but I want to get this one done. And then I want to talk about confidence, having confidence in the field or on the phone. But here are a few quick tips about the warm-up. Number one, warm up your leads, offer some valuable information about your products to the prospects before calling them up. This is where your emails that are going out with information in them will help you. They will precede your call. Number two, you may want to send them a concise email, give an overview of your product and the company, or provide valuable incentives. Give them videos, give them brochures if you want to mail them out. They even have brochures that are, digital brochures that you can send. You can send free PDF reports, product samples. I have a lady that I was in business with in 1994, one of the earlier companies that I was with. She has a website, and she will send you product samples. So this is a nice feature as well. And you always want to follow up with your calls, and that contact manager that we have now will allow you to do just that, following up with your calls after a few days. Number three, you want to initiate a conversation. You don't want to sound too excited when you call up your lead, because that will put them on a defensive right away. You want to remain calm and engage your prospect in a natural conversation, not boring, not monotone. You want to try to make them feel comfortable, put them at ease, create a feeling of trust, and make them feel that you are trying to help them instead of just there to make the sale. Ask questions, ask your prospects questions regarding their problems, help them to tell you exactly what is on their minds. Try to understand their needs, and then tell them how your product can solve their problems. Your prospects will be more open to listening to your solutions if they feel that you were able to understand their problem. And you want to avoid trying to close. In case everything is going really fine for you and you think they're ready to buy, don't try to close right away. This can put pressure on your prospect. It can ruin a relationship, and you're trying to build a relationship, not try to tear it down. So you want to focus only on securing an appointment instead of making a sale. Sometimes the sale doesn't have to be on the first time that you talk to the person. It could be the second one. It could be the third one. We also talked about this earlier, that sometimes it takes a person 7 times to see your product before he or she is going to buy it. Keep that in mind. Don't rush it. Number 6, confirm. Suggest a brief introductory meeting with your prospect. It could be Skype if you like. It could be on the phone if you like. Whatever it is. But you want to jot down the time, the date, and the place of the meeting. Now, the beauty of this is you got your contact manager already there for you. You can put the information therein. Or if you're a pen and paper type of person like I am, you may want to use your planner. But you want to call that prospect up a day before the meeting and confirm that appointment. I think last week I was telling you the little clue that the little trick that my manager told us. Avoid making it the 8 o'clock hour, the 9 o'clock hour, 9:30. Always give them I'll be meeting you, or we'll be talking at 9:10, 9:12, or whatever. Just don't make it on the hour, quarter of hour, half an hour. They will remember that meeting. So here's the thing. After all is said and done, you've got to be confident about what you're doing. You may be surprised at how your phrasing may imply either confidence or lack of confidence or insecurity. Sometimes people think that you're being polite, and it's really sometimes misconstrued or misinterpreted as being insecure. So you want to carefully choose the words as you are talking to your prospects. Avoid using the words if or might or could or maybe in an effort to be polite, because those words oftentimes suggest insecurity. Another one we could add is try. Rather, you want to choose more powerful words, ones that have confidence, signals of confidence like when and will and would and certainly. So it's very critical that people get the sense that you believe in yourself. Don't be kowtow, don't be, mealy mouth. You want to be strong and assertive. So the following illustrations kind of give you an example of what's insecure versus confident. You might hear somebody say, well, if I don't hear from you, I'll call you if we may meet. Instead, you want to say, I'll call you next week to see when we may meet. Insecure, I hope that you'll find my business suitable for you. That's very weak. Instead, I'm confident that I can help you solve this problem with lead generation. Insecure, I may be a good choice for you. Really? I'm the one for you. I am the number one salesman in my neighborhood, in my department, etc., etc. I've helped this person, that person. You want to appear confident and secure. Here's some other illustrations. Hopefully we can get together and talk. No, let's meet to talk. Maybe I might meet you. I don't think so, sir. Instead, I'd like to get together with you next week on Tuesday at 9:12, or would Wednesday at 8:33 be better for you? Perhaps sometimes next week we might find a time to meet. I don't think so, but instead, next week is a great time for me to meet with you. Assertive. So hopefully you get the point. If you're tempted to use a word or a phrase that kind of rings of insecurity, you want to put up those shoulders back, get that confidence up, and showing that you are sincere and that you're ready to do business. Now, you have to be very careful about sincerity. Here are a few tips. Number one, it's all right to begin a few sentences with I, but don't overdo it. A conversation that becomes too I-focused is probably going to draw a response from your prospect like, doesn't this guy ever consider anybody except for himself? And we need to do that outside of the sales floor as well. Get rid of that I. It's a we. Number two, utilize concrete terminology. Refer to particulars you've learned, researched, or experienced during your lifetime. If appropriate, you want to utilize precise numbers, names, and places rather than generalities. For instance, you would say, I can envision a 10% increase in your sales generation and your lead generation. It's much better than I can envision sales growth in your business. Speak with specificity is the word. Be concrete, be specific. And number three, speak specifically to the prospect's goals. It's important that while you're doing that warm-up, you find out what the goals, what the challenges, what the mission statement happens to be, because all of this helps you to learn more about that person and to be able to close him or her as well. Number four, please. Most people say, I've got problems with names. When you have negative affirmations, they serve no purpose. Learn the person's name, say the person's name, use the person's name. Dale Carnegie is noted for having said in his classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. By the way, if you haven't read that book, it's a good one for all salespersons, anybody in internet, network marketing, win friends and how to win friends and influence people. He said this, remember always, that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Got a typo there. And he writes further, using a person's name is crucial, especially when meeting those we don't see very often. Respect and acceptance stem from simple acts such as remembering a person's name and using it whenever appropriate. So use it during a sales cycle. Number 5, excuse me, let me go back. If you have a humorous tone throughout, break that tone from time to time. Use the comments such as, seriously, I know I can, or joking aside, there are several issues. And I need to tell you, sometimes it doesn't do you well to be too funny during your sales process. Some people have that joking or that jovial spirit, but a lot of times you want to be serious and matter of fact there. Number 6, utilize an assertive but not an aggressive tone in your closing that lets the person know that you're sincere about wanting him or her to sign on. For instance, you can simply say, I'll contact you next week to follow up on this proposal. Be assertive, be confident. And number 7, what is always critically important, always say thanks in a simple and honest way towards the end. This is whether or not you don't secure the sale or whether you do secure the sale. Whether you secure the recruit or you don't secure the recruit. Always say thank you for your time, for your energy, for your effort. And let your prospect know that you really appreciate his or her attention, giving you the time and the attention. That having been said, in conclusion, the secret to success in selling is building rapport with people, connecting with people, reading people, asking great questions, and finding out about them is the first most important step in selling yourself, your product, and your